question is, has the Republican Party completely jumped the shark on this issue? And is this ratchet rhetoric really the GOP's grand Latino outreach plan? Alfonso Aguilar is the executive director of the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles. He also served as chief of the U.S. Office of Citizenship under President George W. Bush. And Jimmy Williams is executive editor at thebluenationreview.com and an MSNBC contributor. And I'm going to start with you, Alfonso, because, you know, the images of people screaming at buses full of children who don't understand what they're saying because they probably don't really necessarily speak English, and some of them are 5. People yelling, "Go home," some showing up to meetings in Michigan with guns, with AR-15 strapped on and screaming, "Go home." Is this the way that the Republican Party reaches out to Latino Americans? Because when Americans, whether you're Latino or not, frankly, look at this, this looks crazy. Does it look crazy to you?
It looks definitely crazy, and some of those comments are preposterous and xenophobic and are offensive to Hispanics. But let's be fair, however. I think it would be irresponsible and false to say that the majority Republicans are using that type of rhetoric and are expressing those type of sentiments.
But Alfonso, I wouldn't say the majority of Republicans are using that type of rhetoric, but I don't hear a lot of Republican leaders standing up and saying that is out of bounds. Stop saying that. Don't do that. And telling people to back down. I don't see a lot of people doing that. What I do hear are people like Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas. Let me play you what his most recent comments were. Take a listen.
You want to talk about a war on women? This administration will not defend the women of America from criminal aliens by the thousands and hundreds of thousands.
I mean, you know, Alfonso, that's the rhetoric we're hearing out of leaders.
But to be fair, but again, I think you're looking at a couple of members of Congress, you know, people like Louie Gohmert or Michelle Bachmann or Steve King, and saying that they speak for the entire Republican Party, and that's just not true. I would agree with you that the majority are keeping quiet. I think they should stand up. In the past, we've seen Reince Priebus, the chair of the Republican National Committee, even Speaker Boehner and others come out and say, you know, please don't use that type of language. I think they have to do it now. But let's not generalize. And at the end, I think, look, everybody around this debate is behaving badly. Some Republicans for saying things that are outrageous, proposing ideas that are wrong to deal with this situation, but the Obama administration as well. The Obama administration was not ready to deal with this situation, even though they had 2 years to prepare for it. And let's not forget that it was President Obama, the first one to suggest that we change the law to arbitrarily send kids back to their home countries.
Mr. Aguilar, that is something that Republicans are saying that they want to send the kids back. As a matter of fact, the governor of Texas says they also want to deploy the National Guard and festoon the southern border with armed military men.
And I disagree with that. But what I'm saying is that we have Democrats like Congressman Cuellar, a Democrat of Texas, working with Senator Corning, suggesting that we change the law. I disagree with that. But what I'm saying is both parties are using this issue politically instead of thinking of the children. Okay. And that's what we should be focusing on.
Let me come to you, Jimmy Williams. Is this an issue where one of my least favorite phrases in the world, both sides are doing it equally?
Sure. I mean, yes. But because Democrats are for something which is actually called immigration reform. Remember, they passed a bill out of the Senate a year ago, like 2 weeks ago. Had 14 Republicans that voted for it. It's sitting over in the House, been there for a year. Alfonso's right. The Republicans should speak up. Speaker Boehner should speak up. I respect Speaker Boehner. But, I mean, and by the way, if Speaker Boehner has an alternative, just put it on the floor. Just do it. I mean, this is not complicated. Remember during the AIDS crisis in the 1980s that remember ACTA put up the signs that said silence is death? That's what this is. This is silence. If the GOP is going to be silent on the issue of immigration reform and only let the crazies like Gohmert and Nugent, etc., and Rick Perry speak out in these hyperbolic terms, then that is their voice. So I would suggest that Speaker Boehner and Reince Priebus and others take to the podiums and actually go do something about this.
Is there political space for them to do that? Because, of course, and Alfonso Aguilar worked for President George W. Bush, who on this issue was actually very progressive.
Very good, yes.
And tried to make reform happen during his administration. And I think you could argue that the Bush family is actually quite positive on this issue. But where are those Republicans? Where are the Bush Republicans to speak up on this issue? Because they are silent, to include one Jeb Bush, who's maybe running for president. Alfonso?
Oh, I don't think he has been quiet. And frankly, President Bush's views on immigration were not progressive, as you say. We're actually a part of that free market ideology that you talked about initially.
But he did something.
We believe, look.
But
right.
he did something.
But what you're saying is, going to Jimmy's point, that somehow immigration reform would have prevented this crisis in the border, and that's not true at all. In fact, we know that one of the underlying reasons many of these kids are coming to the United States is because their parents are here. And their parents are here not because they don't want to visit their children back home. It's just that if they go back home, they would have to re-enter illegally into the United States.
Well,
that's why we need a market-based guest worker program. And President Obama opposes a guest worker program, and the Senate bill did not include an effective guest worker program. Right. So but the bill in the Senate would have not done anything to prevent this situation.
But the point is the Senate passed the bill. The House has passed nothing. There are currently more border patrols on the border right now than at any time in American history, and yet we have this problem. You're right. It's been a long time in the making. But again, at least the Democrats did something. President Obama sent a bill. It was passed out of the Senate with 14 Republicans. Valiant Republicans. I give them that. But again, your party has got to step up on this. You cannot issue an autopsy report in January of 2013 saying we've got to reach out and then sit back and be silent about that. You can't do that.
With that, I agree. With that, I agree. Speaker Boehner, I understand if they didn't want to consider the Senate bill, but they should have proposed something.
Right. Hell, anything would do. I'll take anything at this point.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Indeed. I think we've come to one point of agreement. Let's get some kind of a bill on the floor, and somebody please stand up.
126 bills passed this in the House this year. 126. One of them has not been integration.
Indeed.
But on this point,
go on very quickly. We're out of time.
But just on this point, let's focus on the children. These children are not entering illegally. They're going to the border and surrendering themselves to the border patrol.
Indeed. And by the way, they're not from the Middle East. They're not carrying dengue fever. And hopefully someone will speak up. Alfonso Aguilar and Jimmy Williams. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.